Welcome back, students. This afternoon, I'm going to read a traditional tale for you. I read the one new kind of fun version of this story last week, but in my house, which is so filled with all kinds of amazing books, I happened to find a really cool pop-up book, a very old pop-up book that has the traditional story that's connected to this, the traditional version. So I'm going to set up the camera so we can see the pop-up pictures better, and I'll see you in a minute. Welcome back, students. Today I have a real old-fashioned lovely book of Red Riding Hood to share with you. And this is the cover, and there you can already see little Red Riding Hood peeking out from behind a tree, and the wolf is looking at her, and then what happens? Oh, he looks scary with his tongue. You can see the tongue is a little broken, but still it's like, ah, ah. And there she is peeking and peeking. Okay, let's go. Okay, so it looks like here is where Little Red Riding Hood lives. Once upon a time, there was a little girl who was called Red Riding Hood because she always wore a red bonnet. One day, there's her red bonnet. One day, her mother came to her and said, "Red Riding Hood, it's Granny's birthday today. I have put some cakes, some fruit, and a bottle of wine in your basket. So will you take them to Granny and wish her many happy returns of the day from us all? But do be careful. There is a big bad wolf in the wood that you have to pass through on your way to Granny's cottage, and he would eat you. When you get to the cottage, knock 3 times on the door, and Granny will know at once that it is you." So Little Red Riding Hood bade farewell, that means said farewell, to her mother and her pets, and to her father, who was just coming home with some wood from the forest, and set out on her long journey. So here we can take a look at her lovely house, and here's the farm animals, and there she is with her little lamb. And if you notice, there's the mom peeking out the door of the house. First, we see her pet dog right there, right? And then her mom is kind of waving farewell to her, saying goodbye. There, yeah? So it's the dog, and then the mom. And there's her dad with some wood. Ooh, here we are in the forest, and I can already see the big bad wolf. It was a lovely morning. Birds were singing in the wood, and beautiful flowers nodded their heads towards Little Red Riding Hood. She decided to pick some for Granny, but as she bent down to do so, she heard a suspicious sound coming from the footpath and quickly hid behind a bush. Peering out from her hiding place, she saw a large, strange animal sitting on her path. Okay, so here's Little Red Riding Hood, and you can see her little eyes peeking out through the bush. Well, it's kind of hard to see. There they are. She's peeking right there. It nodded its head and asked her where she was going. Oh, there's the wolf nodding his head. Where are you going? It was the big bad wolf, of course, but Little Red Riding Hood had never seen one before, so she did not know this. "To Granny, to wish her many happy returns of the day. It's her birthday today, you see," Little Red Riding Hood explained, poking her head out from behind the bush. There she is, peeking out, peeking out. "I shall knock 3 times on the door, and Granny will come and let me in." Oh, I don't think she should have told that to the big bad wolf. Oh, there we are at Grandma's house. Oh, what a lovely little house she has. Oh, but there at the window, I see the big bad wolf. Oh, and there's a cute little cat. There's a cute little cat right there. In the meantime, Granny was sitting up in bed in her cottage, knitting a pair of stockings. She wore glasses because she was old and her sight was poor. The wolf, who had run on ahead of Little Red Riding Hood, peered in carefully through the window to see if Granny was alone in the cottage. Then he crept to the door and knocked 3 times. "Who is it?" asked Granny from inside.
"It's me, Little Red Riding Hood, Granny," said the wolf in a very high voice. "I have brought you cookies and fruit and wine for your birthday."
"Welcome, Little Red Riding Hood. Lift the latch and the door will open," Granny called from her bed. The wolf did so, jumped into the room. Let's make him jump into the room. Here we go. Jumped into the room and gobbled up poor Granny. Then he put on Granny's night bonnet, got into bed, and waited for Little Red Riding Hood to come along. Oh, wow. So here, this one, in this picture, there he's peeking in the window. Boom! He's ready to come in the door. Oh, and there's Little Red Riding Hood outside the cottage. What a lovely little cottage with a nice vegetable garden. Okay, Little Red Riding Hood was walking through the wood, quite unaware of what the big bad wolf had done. She sang a merry little song and picked flowers as she went along to bring as many as she could to Granny. The time passed quickly, and suddenly she found herself in front of Granny's cottage. Little Red Riding Hood knocked 3 times on the door and waited for Granny to come and open it for her. When no one answered, she knocked again. From inside came a low, deep voice.
"Little Red Riding Hood, I am ill and can't get out of bed. Lift the latch and the door will open."
It was the big bad wolf, of course, lying in bed and pretending to be Granny. But Little Red Riding Hood did not suspect anything. She did as she was told and went inside the cottage. So she just went right inside. Oh, let me check this from the other page. Oh, wow. Doesn't Granny look odd today? Thought Little Red Riding Hood as she drew near to the bedside. "Granny, what big eyes you have," she called out in surprise. "All the better to see you with, my dear," replied the wolf, who had dressed up to look like Granny. He had put on her bonnet and her spectacles and held her knitting needles in his hands. "What big ears you have," said Little Red Riding Hood. "All the better to hear you with," replied the wolf. "And what big teeth you have," said Little Red Riding Hood. "All the better to eat you with," growled the wolf, and he jumped up, and before you could say Jack Robinson, had gobbled up Little Red Riding Hood too. Then he ate the cakes and the fruit and all the other good things in the basket, drank the wine, then got into bed and went to sleep. Oh my goodness. So here's Little Red Riding Hood kind of peering over the edge of the bed. Oh my. What big eyes you have. What big ears you have. What big teeth you have. And all the better to eat you with, says the big bad wolf. But I think there's someone just outside the cottage who might be helpful in a moment. Let's see. Don't worry. Oh, look at the big bad wolf. He's just like all asleep in bed, and he's made a big mess. All the fruit and the wine and the sweets, the pies and everything he just ate. And here comes the forester or the hunter. And look, his dog is snarling. Okay, the wolf was snoring away in Granny's bed. He had a wonderful dream. He dreamt that he was at a huge feast where lots of meat and other good things were being served. "Oh, I'm having a wonderful time," he thought in his sleep, "but I must be quick and eat it all up before anyone else discovers it." At that moment, a forester was passing by and stopped at the cottage. He listened and thought how strange it was that Granny should be snoring so loudly. He knocked on the door, but there was no reply. Thinking that something must be wrong, he opened the door, entered the room, and saw the wolf lying asleep in Granny's bed with the remains of his dinner all around him. He immediately dragged the wolf out of bed and out of the cottage and slit open his stomach with a knife. Oh, a little violent there. Okay, and here is the wolf. Oh, happy ending. Let's see, except not for the wolf. But there's Granny, there's Little Red, there's the cat. Let's see what happened. Out of the wolf's stomach jumped Little Red Riding Hood, and after her came Granny. Dear, dear, they both asked at once, where have we been? And they looked in surprise at the forester with the knife in his hand and at the dead wolf lying on the ground. Oh, now I remember, said Granny at last. That's the wolf who deceived me a little while ago, pretending that he was Little Red Riding Hood, and now the good forester has rescued us. They both thanked the forester again and again for having saved their lives. Little Red Riding Hood then ran home as fast as she could and told her parents all that had happened to Granny and her. They were very surprised at the adventure that Little Red Riding Hood had been through and relieved that she had come home safe and sound. There's the house. Ooh. That evening, they held a feast to celebrate Granny's birthday. They invited the brave forester, there he is, without whom they would not have been able to sit around the table like this, happy and gay, with Granny and Little Red Riding Hood. They all ate and drank and had a very good time. Mother brought them food, Father helped them to wine, and they both urged their guests to eat and drink all they could. They were all very, very happy, just as people are when they have faced some great danger and are safe at last. So there you can see, they're all Little Red Riding Hood. We see her from the back, and there's the cat and the dog, and they have a nice feast set on the table. I think they're starting with their soup, and there's the dad, and the forester, and the granny, and maybe that's the grandpa. Maybe that's a portrait of the grandpa who's not alive anymore. And there's the mom bringing a lovely cake. And then on the back, this is really cool. On the back, there's a picture of Little Red Riding Hood, and she's looking at this very book. Can you imagine? She's looking in a book, and you can see that she's opened up the cover like this. And that's what it would be like if she were looking, if we could see this, because has opened it and she's looking at the first page. Anyway, so there is a very old-fashioned Little Red Riding Hood. Ah! Goes the wolf. I hope you enjoyed that. Anyway, let's see. Be sure to keep washing your hands, cover your coughs and sneezes, do some reading, do some writing, help your family around the house. I love you. I miss you. And see you tomorrow. Bye.